Welcome to Power Lunch Live. I'm Rhett Power, your host. It's great to be with you here on Wednesday already in August. The time is just going by fast. It's unbelievable. 2020 we're in August. It's crazy. Hey, it's Power Lunch Live is here, and the reason we're here is to bring you today's thought leaders, best-selling authors, people who are doing amazing work in the world that we can all learn from in our business so that we can get better. Today is going to be fun. I've got Laura Noel. We're going to talk with her in just a few minutes. But look, I want to tell you this: the program's live. You can ask your questions straight on this platform, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I think we're on Twitch, and probably something else I'm missing. But we do monitor those feeds during the program, so that you can ask your questions, because we want this to be an interactive kind of thing. Now, if you like the program, give it a like or share so that your network can benefit, and obviously so we can grow our audience. That's always a good thing. So anyway, like I said, I've got Laura Noel today. We're going to talk about high performance leadership. I know that you're tired of being kind of pulled in all kinds of different directions with zero time left for yourself. We're going to try to help you get to some of the reasons why that's happening, maybe give you some tools to help fix that. Now, Laura is a certified Proctor and Gallagher Coach. She's got a 27-year military career, leadership career in the military. She's been coaching and helping high performers the whole time. So she's got a wealth of knowledge in how we can be more focus on what really matters, and stop feeling so out of control, become more productive, and spend more time really discovering what it is you love to do. So Laura, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you about your practice in just a minute, but I want to ask you sort of a big general, maybe it's an unfair question, but that you'd love to hear that. But how do you think COVID, I don't think it's unfair, actually. I think yeah. you probably have seen this in your career in the military and in your coaching practice, but how do you think COVID and things like COVID change leadership? How do you think it's changed leadership in a sort of a big picture way?
I think if leadership is wise, maybe it's prompted them to ask different questions. I think a situation like this can amplify your natural state of being and how you operate.
Right.
I think it can also highlight problems that were already there, but maybe right. You couldn't really focus on them, or you didn't need to, because things were operating smoothly. And now right. that COVID didn't cause the problems mm-hmm. were already there. It's just now they're more apparent.
Do you think there's some skills that leaders need to have right now that maybe, like I think you were great. I think it's a great point, right? Maybe you didn't have to focus so much on because things were good, things were easy. Now that they're hard, are there some things that you think leaders, like particular skills that are really, really important? And if you don't do them, I mean, it's leads to some really uh, trouble in the organization. Are there a couple skills you think that are really, really important right now?
Well, first and foremost, I would say, and it's going to sound weird that I'm saying this, is thinking. And mental activity is not thinking. So when we're in reaction mode and we're reacting to all these problems around us, we're not thinking, we're just reacting. And so I think it's essential to maybe reacting and being in the grind got you to that level, it got you to a certain level of success, really grinding it out. But if we want to make it through situations like these, we have to find that ease and flow. And I think there's a better way of following the path of least resistance. And that requires taking a step back. And it's counterintuitive because you have to get focused on the end state, what it is you want, instead of focusing on the problem. I think it's a shift in mentality, really.
Yeah. I think I don't disagree. So let's bring it back to your practice. Talk a little bit about what you do. I mean, I introduced a little bit of it, but why do you focus on things like mindset and focus and kind of getting under control, that feeling of sort of being out of control?
Right. Everything that we do, our level of success, it starts with us. And so no matter, what kind of team we're working with or leading, our leadership always starts with leadership of self. So that's first and foremost. And we can get into a rhythm and a pattern of working harder. I think that's instilled in anyone that's reached a level of success. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've had 27 years in the military and we still value that hard work. I mean, I got to the top echelons and I worked with leaders in that realm. But even in the corporate world, we're taught to value hard work. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't put the time in. You need to, and you need the requisite skills to do the things that you want to do. But really shifting those paradigms and finding that ease and flow, thinking first, I mean, that's key first and foremost. So that's a big part of the work that I do with a client when I bring them on board is I'll ask them, what do you want? And they're so used to reacting to everything that's going on and serving other people that oftentimes I find that they haven't taken the time to really think about what they want and how they're showing up. But when you put that first, when you put that mindset is everything. Like your level of success, you can reach a certain level in the grind, like I said, but you are going to reach newer heights when you follow that path of least resistance, putting yourself first, your thinking first, the end state first.
What is, when you talk about the path of least resistance, this isn't going to sound, for people who are sort of high achievers, right?
Yeah.
That sounds sort of counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
So what does that mean, really?
Yeah. I am a self-proclaimed type A overachiever. And I think if I had heard that phrase or that, years ago, I probably would have been just repulsed by it. What do you mean? That means lazy, right?
I mean, right.
Right.
I didn't say that. I didn't want to say that.
No, it's okay because I totally get it. The path of least resistance is listening to yourself, taking inspired action. So I think learning how to make decisions, effective decisions that really move the dial in your business and in your life in a more effective way. So you're accomplishing more in less time because you're not just busy doing everything. I find that, and I was in this mindset where I was kind of like, remember that movie, Jim Carrey, Yes Man, where he just said yes to everything, right? I would say yes to everything. Any opportunity that I felt like, oh, well, it's an opportunity to expand my leadership or to grow or to get to this next level. And by the nature of who we are as high achievers, there's always going to be opportunities presented to us. It doesn't mean that they're the right opportunity.
Right.
And if you are clinging on to those things, you're always going to be in the grind. But if you can follow that path of least resistance, think about, what do I want? How can I be more effective in less time? What do my clients or customers need from me right now? How can I serve? You'll get answers. And that's that inner GPS. You'll be guided, and you'll know when opportunities are presented to you, which ones you need to leverage. It's about leverage, really, that moves you faster. It's not working harder. It's just understanding what opportunities you need to leverage and what are in alignment with your vision and your goal.
What are the are there some particular tools for this? I mean, are there ways you can do this? Because I need I've got the worst case of ADD in the world.
Yeah.
So I have to have a system, right, to sort of manage whether it's saying no to something or saying yes to something. Are there some ways that are ways that are effective in doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I work with clients through a system, and first and foremost, you've got to get clear on what you want, not just in your career, but in your life and your relationships. So getting that whole picture, that just beautiful visual image. And then as you start taking steps toward it, you want to be aware of kind of the thoughts that pop up into the corners of your mind. Like if there's something that you want to be, do, or have that seems impossible, or you're working really hard but you really want to have fulfilling relationships, but you don't have time for that, or you don't think you do. You want to be aware of those thoughts that are coming up into your mind. Those are your paradigms. Those are your deep-rooted beliefs that are keeping you in that hamster wheel. So clarity of vision, you want to get clear on your goal. You want to listen to that voice in your mind, in your head, that's telling you you can't do it or why you can't do it, because that's going to give you a cue as to what are some of those thoughts that are holding you back. And then you want to start to shift those beliefs. Okay, if I'm stuck in, I'm working so hard, I don't have time to focus on my family, I love them. What would you rather believe? Even just asking yourself a simple question. What would I rather believe? How would I rather feel? Now, your subconscious mind, we're kind of getting into that. Your subconscious mind doesn't know what's real and what's imagined. Your subconscious mind believes whatever you tell it, whatever you feed it with emotion. So if you truly believe that you have to work hard and you're putting in that hard work for your family and you're going to enjoy life later, for example, that's how you will operate. Your subconscious mind governs your habitual way of seeing the world and behaving. But you can start to shift it by, one, understanding what are those beliefs. You have to be willing to put the time in to think about it. And then you start deciding, well, what would I rather believe, and affirming that to yourself instead until you start to believe it. So I would say the first step is, if you need a method, is to take 15 minutes to yourself in the morning, first thing, before looking at your email, before getting into the work and into the flow of the day and getting on calls, even if you have to get up earlier to do it, and just intend what your day is going to be like, and set an intention of how you're going to feel, the interactions you're going to have with people, how that meeting is going to go. Start there and then build from that. But you've got to carve that time out first and foremost for yourself to think.
And I also like taking a little time at the end of the day to sort of reflect and to ask myself questions. How did I do today? Where could I have been better? Where could I have, where did I fall down? Where did I do really well? Just sort of reflect and again, think about tomorrow, and before I go to bed, get my mindset right for tomorrow too, right? So that if you do that morning wake up, you wake up ready to go, and you're more focused, and you can sort of pick up where you left off right before you went to bed. That's, for me, that sort of gets my head in the right mind frame to end the day.
I love that.
Do you talk about you learn to say no, right? So that sounds negative, but is that a negative thing? learning to say no?
No. And and I can remember when I first learned to say no and not feel any negative feelings toward it. I remember just being in the grind, and when somebody would ask me to do one more thing, I'm like, that's it. That's the straw that's breaking the camel's back. Like I couldn't take on anymore. And I would start to feel anxious when I had felt like I had other demands placed on me. And I can remember when I was doing this goal achieving session, and I was a student in it. And basically I was working, I was in the military, my husband was deployed, I commuted back and forth to work, I had our dogs at home, and I had all these things on my plate at work.
Right.
And then I had people wanting my leadership in other things, and it just wasn't the right fit at that time. It used to be the old me I would say yes, but then I would feel resentful, or I would ruminate over it and go, well, I'm going to tell them no. And I would be thinking this, I don't care what they think, but I wouldn't say that. Then I would eventually say no. And then the guilt, I would be consumed with guilt and feeling bad, like I let somebody down. But in the midst of this, I was stretched to capacity, and I had to learn to say no. And I remember distinctly that somebody said, look, I want you as my director of operations for this event. You're the one, I know it, I see it, we work well together. And I decided, look, no, I don't want to do it. And they kept going at me. And then I said yes. And then it just didn't feel right. And so within a few hours, I called the person back and I said, you know what? My intention was to say no, because my plate is full and I'm focused on these other things. It's not you. It's not the right fit right now. And in that moment, I felt so empowered. I didn't feel any negativity towards it. I didn't worry what they thought about me in that moment. I just felt like, you know what, they're going to have to understand. And if they truly value our relationship and me, then they're going to be okay with it. And that was a turning point for me. This is what I'm really saying. When you take that time in the morning and you set your intention for the day, you know what's in alignment with your vision. And it's okay to say no to some things that are not in alignment. It doesn't mean that it's no forever, but it's very empowering to do that.
Indeed. So we've got some questions from the audience. Anad, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, my friend. He asked about the top 3 mindsets, I guess, required to be a high performer. Does that make sense as a question?
Okay. So the top 3, I say to be a top or high performer, I think you have to be a leader of self first. So you have to be in control of your emotions and how you react. Or do you react to things in a knee-jerk fashion, or do you think and respond appropriately? I think to be a high-level performer, you have to make decisions in alignment with your vision and not in alignment with what is. So if things aren't going well, but you have a vision for creating something phenomenal in your life and in your work center, you want to be driven and make decisions based on what you want. Because if you're making decisions based on what is the current state, that's going to keep perpetuating the same type of results. And I think you want to be an intelligent follower. You know, you as a leader, as a high performing leader, if you wanted to invest money, you're not going to go to somebody who's broke and ask them, well, what do you think I should do? Right? It's not going to pan out well. So you've got to know that you don't know everything. None of us do. I mean, I get coached. I'm a coach. You know, high performing leaders have coaches in different aspects of their life and their mindset and their business, because you don't have the answers. You don't have all the answers. You can only expand as far as your level of awareness will allow you. And when you are an intelligent follower, you can expand that, that awareness.
Yeah, that's great advice and true. It's always use a sports analogy for this, but why does Serena Williams, why does why do Olympic athletes, why do pro athletes have coaches, right? It's because they help them make those little adjustments, those little things that they can't do on their own, right? And that's what sets them apart from you and me on the tennis court or on the pitch, right? Well, no, there are a lot of other things that probably set us apart, but that's one thing. That's one key thing. So we had another question from Jason. Jason asked, "What's the best way to develop next generation leaders post COVID-19?"
I would say, if you're not already asking questions and how you can serve your clients and how you can be better, I think that's, you want to get people who are again, I keep saying the word thinking, but they're conditioned to ask the right questions, because you're going to get different answers depending on the quality of your questions. So if you're in a state right now where you're like, oh my gosh, how do I stop my business from bleeding money? That's a different question that's going to yield a different answer than, how can I serve right now? How can I best serve right now? You're going to get a different answer. And of course, you're going to get a different result. So I'd say inspiring leaders to just ask better quality questions and let that drive them.
I've always thought, and I'd be interested in your take on this, I've always thought that the military did leadership development and next generation development a lot better than corporate America and business. I always thought that there's a lot more focus on that leadership development at the mid level than there is. I mean, I always felt like when I was in corporate America, it was I got the next job because I was competent at the job that I was doing, right?
Yeah.
And then you get thrown in, hey, you're great at sales. Why don't you become the sales manager? And the next day you're in the sales manager's office and you're trying to teach people and lead people. And I've always felt like we don't do a great job at that sort of next generation. I get to Jason's question, that we do that very well. I've always thought the military probably did that well. What do you think?
I believe that wholeheartedly. And what's interesting is I think there's a misconception about the military that, we just do what we're told and we're not thinking, but that's not true at all. I mean, we're put in positions and we very much value that cultivation of leadership and that cultivation of those soft skills. And when we're put in a position, really cultivating that training within,
right.
Training and thinking on your feet and empowering people to make decisions at the lowest level. Because if you're not doing that, and that would be another thing to add here, is just, make sure that leaders are developing leaders around them, just to your point, and empowering them to make decisions, to make mistakes, because mistakes, that's not failing, that's feedback. You learn from that feedback. So giving them permission to do that, and then having the patience, it takes time to cultivate that within an individual and an organization, but it's so worth it. And that's the mark of a true leader, someone who's able to do that.
Yeah, and I agree. I also think too that COVID, to Jason, to answer a little further, I think COVID is actually a great opportunity for leaders to find other leaders in their organization, right? The people who have stepped up during this, the people who have volunteered to lead the come back to work committee or whatever it is, right? The communications committee to get information out. So I think this is a great opportunity for you as a leader in your organization to find other people who are potential leaders, people who've stepped up and been creative in this period of time and been really helpful to the organization. So I think post-COVID, but I think right now it's a great opportunity to find other leaders and other people that you can really count on in your organization. Thank you guys for the questions. I had another one for you. Talk about relationships, because you talk about developing meaningful relationships and how key that is. And I can think of a lot of ways that's your relationships and your network are the key to your success. What do you mean when you talk about developing meaningful relationships? Is that business, or are you talking personally?
Well, it's actually both. I mean, so people who are stuck in the work and they wish they had better relationships, whether it's in a personal relationship or even friendships. So that's one aspect, but also developing those relationships in the context of that networking, like you're talking about. I think when you're developing relationships, you've got to be service focused. How can I be of service to that person? I think that develops trust. So you can't be in your own bubble with your head down in the grind, because then you're not really serving in the best way possible. So opening those questions, finding out what people need, how can you serve? And then also allowing other people to help you and be in receive mode. Because sometimes I know from personal experience, I was the type of leader that was in the grind, and I felt like it was my job to take care of everyone else. And I wouldn't really let people in and let people know when I was struggling with something. But I think that's a part of letting people know that you're human, seeing you fall, and then what you do afterwards. What do you do when you get back up? How do you pick yourself up from that? But also, if you're telling people, ask for support, you have to be willing to ask for support. And also you have to be willing to receive it and allow people. I think generally people want to be of service and want to help people. And when we shut that door and we don't allow that, we're actually robbing that person of an opportunity.
Yeah, that's true. What, talk about some of your ways that you sort of develop your relationships, and how do you manage your relationships? Is there a way that you keep in touch with people that works for you? Talk about that a little bit, and sort of how do you view, does that make sense? I mean, that's sort of the question, I think, because I think people, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I'm terrible at relationships, and I really have to. I mean, I get down to actually scheduling, calling my father and calling.
Sure.
If I don't put it on a calendar, it doesn't happen, right? Yeah. So, and that's just me. That's just the way I have to manage my stuff. So, I mean, how do you manage relationships? And is it? Yeah. It takes a lot of effort.
It can take a lot of effort. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. Scheduling is a great way. I mean, I just had neighbors down the street. They're a few houses down, and I'm like, I'm going to Costco to get a rotisserie chicken. You want to come over? It could be that simple, but they came over, and it was, oh my gosh, why aren't we doing this more often? This was no effort. It was so enjoyable. I feel connected. And now we're having dinner with them at their house next week. So it could be something that you put on the schedule. It doesn't have to take a lot of effort. Another thing that I do is if somebody pops into my mind while I'm driving somewhere or in between appointments, I'll either call them in that moment or text them and just let them know that I was thinking about them. Or if I, am listening to a podcast and it reminds me of somebody, I take the action and send it to them right then and there. Okay. There's simple things that you can do to maintain that connection with people.
Yeah, that it really is. I agree. You've got to really put a focus on it. I mean, I don't, from a professional standpoint, that's how I get jobs now. It's how I get collaborations. It's all because of the effort that you put into those relationships. So it's really, really key. So talk a little bit about, we all get to the stage in our lives, whether it's in, midlife crisis or, you've been running your business for 10 years and you're burned out. How do you get to that point where you're passionate again and you're energized again? And I mean, because I think we all get to the point where we're tired of what we're doing anyway.
Yeah.
And all, asking those questions, why am I still doing this? So how do you sort of reignite that passion?
You have to align with a vision that's bigger than that, maybe dissatisfaction. So it's really getting back to basics. And I can remember when I was in the service, and I loved what I did. I'm really grateful for that time, but I knew in a few years, I was ready. I was going to have to retire, and I couldn't figure out what it was I wanted to do. I was taking all of these classes, and I was collecting all these degrees and certifications, and I didn't feel passionate about any of them. And I started, one of the certifications I got into was yoga, teaching yoga. And I started teaching military people at my work center after hours. And I started to notice just in giving, how they started to shift in their mindset and their clarity. And then I thought, gosh, I would love to bottle this up in a curriculum of some sort and just really teach this to people who ordinarily wouldn't gravitate toward this. And then I just started dreaming, well, what would that look like? And it started to energize me. And that's how I connected with ultimately finding my purpose. I followed my curiosity. I allowed myself to dream. And when I got Napoleon Hill says something to the effect of, when you have an idea, it'll flash on the screen of your mind like a flash of inspiration. And failure to act on that idea will be the death of that idea. So when you have an inspiration, I have goosebumps right now just saying that because it's truth. When you have a flash of inspiration, follow it. Follow that curiosity. Be willing to be childlike and explore. And in that, and ask questions. God, what would that look like? Gosh, how could I do that? You're in alignment when you're doing that. And that's how you start to discover your passion. It starts as a fantasy, right? That vision. And then when you start to ask questions, well, gosh, what would that look like? You start to turn it into a theory. And well, gosh, I think I'm going to create something like that. And then it becomes a goal. So maybe it's not even a drastic step away from what you're currently doing. Maybe it's aligning what you're currently doing in a bigger picture, in a lifestyle, or leaving a legacy, or connecting with a philanthropic type of endeavor that really touches your heart. So it might be something as simple as that.
Yeah, no, that's true. So I'm going to encourage everybody, if you have, we're almost at the end. So if you have more questions, please do ask. But talk about right now in sort of this COVID thing that we're living through, what scares you right now, and what are you really excited about from whether it could be business, personal, whatever, but where is your mindset right now on all of this, and what scares you, and what are you excited about?
What scares me is I see a lot of people shouting but not listening.
Yeah.
And that's a bit, it can be disheartening if you focus on it. And but what's inspiring and what's exciting is when I have opened up conversations with people who've had drastically different opinions than me, or it seemed like it on the surface, and we were willing to talk, we actually had a lot more in common than we do different. And that's exciting to me. I'm seeing more conversations happening little by little, and I know what we're capable of doing. I know that we're going to get through that. So that's exciting to me.
That actually brings up an interesting question that I have to ask them. How do you have those conversations? Because I agree, I think we are doing a lot of shouting at each other these days. Yeah. How do you have those conversations with people who are shouting? I mean, that you don't seemingly want to be reasonable and sit down and have a reasonable conversation. Because you're right. I don't think people are that far apart, right?
Right.
In so many ways, we want similar things, right? We want good healthcare. We want good leadership. We want good schools. We want, good healthcare. I mean, I think that there's some things that we'd be hard pressed not to all agree on, but how do we have those conversations when people are, don't seem to want to talk?
Yeah. You have to understand when there are people who don't want to talk, that's not the time to get through to them. And so sometimes when I post something, maybe on social media, and I open up a dialogue, if I had this experience, and I'm very grateful that just a couple of people were not responding to the comment, but were attacking me personally. And then I didn't react to it. And so you have to keep your cool and know that they're coming from their point of reference. They're coming from their paradigm, and you're coming from yours. It's not them. It's not me. It's just, it's how they're programmed to react. So that diffuses me. So I'm able to say, well, okay, but how do you feel about the situation? Let's have a dialogue about that, so I can understand where you're coming from. If you're connected with me, then there's a reason for that. And can we give each other the benefit of the doubt? And sometimes that disarms people, and you can have a dialogue. But sometimes it doesn't. And you just have to be okay with that, and hope that maybe something that you posted, or, hey, I found the disconnect. I think this group believes this, and I believe this. And I think I found where I can bridge the gap. Maybe it opens somebody up who's kind of in the middle. That's my hope. I don't think when somebody's shouting that they're in a place where they can hear.
Yeah, no, that's, I think, spot on. So how can people get in touch? I know it's stretchintosuccess.com. Are there other ways that people can find you online and get in touch? We've had a few requests for that. So.
Oh, good. Yeah. So if they go to stretchintosuccess.com/power lunch, there's a whole welcome page for your listeners. So there are some free resources. One is 6 mindset changing techniques to a more fulfilled life. So you could download that and enter your email. That way you stay in the know. I'm getting ready to launch something really big at the end of the month, a 5-day workshop that's free that really gets into these techniques. So you're out of that busy BS I call, but the blind spots. And also there's a way to book a call with me if you really want to have a one-on-one conversation. So you'll find everything there. And also I'm on LinkedIn, so you can reach out to me there as well.
Okay. We'll probably put the link to the website in the chat here after the show. And so people can, and right off the website, they can book the 5-day show, a 5-day seminar.
What they'll do on the website is they'll get in my email list, so they'll know when registration is open. Okay. And they'll get emails inviting them to my Facebook group, which is where actually the live event will be hosted. It'll all be live right in there, so it'll be very interactive.
Fantastic. That's good to know. Yeah. And thank you for joining us here today on Power Lunch Live. We'll be back tomorrow with another show. And so you can go to powerlunch.live for the schedule and for our upcoming shows next week and for the calendar. But thank you for being with us today. Stay healthy, stay safe, and enjoy. It's already August, so I hope you are enjoying your summer, getting a little bit of a summer break while maybe getting a little bit of work done as well. But we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.